Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel. This is Jolly, and I'm back with week 2 of the Seek, Gather, Create challenge. Um, First of all, I wanted to say thank you so much for the wonderful response to last week's video, which was week 1 of the August 2026 edition of Seek, Gather, Create, and my first sort of make-along style video. Everyone was very kind about it. I have taken a few lessons learned from that. So one of which is I've switched away from the glass mat where you can see my face reflected in it, and this is actually traditionally more what I work on. This is just like packing paper that I cover my desks with, and yeah, and I'm also just going to try to ramble a bit less. That was probably a longer video than it needed to be and a bit more repetitive, but overall, I had a lot of fun making it, and hopefully onward and upward from here. So yeah, so again, like I said, we're week 2, Seek, Gather, Create, and again, you can check out my last video, but Seek, Gather, Create is a biannual challenge, so it's done in February and August each year. It's hosted by Lisa Goddard, Tina Hoyce, and Laura D. Dennison, primarily over on Instagram. But each Sunday of that month, they give you 4 prompts or items to seek from your stash, gather them, and then create something, anything with them. So last week, again, I made an altered jar lid, which I actually really love, and I actually just hung it on a lamp right on my desk so I can look at it all the time. So I fear I may have peaked for this month's edition of the challenge on week 1, but that's okay. We're gonna keep going. And so yeah, these are the items for week 2. So one is cutouts, and then a seed, texture, and light green. And so, yeah, so here are the items that I've gone and sought out. And so, first of all, in terms of what I'm going to be making, so I mentioned last week that I was enjoying making these little boxes out of repurposed toilet paper roll tubes. And so, I think with the idea that I have for this week, that's going to work out real well. So, I've got an unmade one. I'm gonna walk you through how I make these on this in this video. So that's gonna be my base. That's basically what the project is gonna be. And then in terms of the items, so cutouts. So I'm with the seed and the light green. I was going toward like a nature gardeny feel. And so for cutouts is I have a ton of these. I make these little paper flowers with button centers. And the way I make them is I just use, these are just 9 cutouts of circles. I use a circle punch. And so I have a bunch that are made with different sizes, different types of paper, but I really like this one in particular. This was just a page from a magazine that I turned into and then used this button. And I think this will look good with the light green base that we're going to be using. So I think I'm going to use this flower. So that's a cutout. And then I've also got this sort of applique or trim. And so I'm going to cut out a piece of this and use sort of the stem and the leaves, and then to help make the flower. That's what I'm thinking. So I think that also counts as a cutout. And then finally, depending on how I end up decorating the little box, um, I might end up using a Tim Holtz paper dolls or one of the scans of my cabinet cards that I've used on a lot of my Twinchies as part of the 100-day project. So that could also be a cutout. So we've got cutout done. A seed. So that this is the one that really tripped me up. So I live in downtown DC in an apartment building. I do not do any gardening. I'm not a very big nature person. So seeds is a little tough. So I don't really have a seed traditionally, but uh, I do have this bag of little buttons that are black and gray. And to me, these look like seeds. So I'm going to use these buttons, and then I think that fits nicely since we've got a button in the center of the flower. This is the seed that grows into the flower. So a little bit of imagination on the seeds, but so then with the box, what I want to do is make a seed box, essentially, like a seed packet, but a box. And I'm going to turn it into a bit of a pun since we're using buttons as our seeds and we've got appliques. I think the theme is going to be sowing seeds, but SEWING instead of SOWING. So that's going to be my idea. So these are our sowing seeds, uh, which is going to be tiny buttons. Okay, and then texture. So I'm thinking here along the bottom of the box, since we're going to have a flower growing up with the applique, here along the bottom of the box, I'm going to add some texture. And for that, I'm going to use this, a pack of this dry clay beads. So these are just basically, I get these enclosed when I order online. So these will be in like the plastic packaging with the clothing item to keep out moisture. And what they look like is this. And so they look very sort of soil texture. So I think I'm going to make that sort of the soil on the box. So that'll be our texture item. And then light green. So I'm going to paint the box light green. I've got a couple paints here. I've got the golden So Flat yellow green paint, and then actually an extremely similar color, which is the Tim Holtz Twisted Citron Distress paint. So they're almost the same color. So I'm just going to pick whichever one I decide to work with, and then I'm going to do some stamping. So I think since we're going with like a sewing theme, I have a Tim Holtz Stampers Anonymous background stamp that's like a floral lace. So I might see if I want to stamp that in the background, but either way, I'm going to stamp the word sowing seeds. I'm thinking um, seeds is going to go like across this lip. And then we'll see if we can fit sewing up here. So to fit in with the theme and solidify the pun. And then the last time I have is just so the original tutorial that I watched for these, which is by Paige Elliott here on YouTube. They actually just they put a button basically on here, which would work with my theme and then some string around it. But I really love, inspired by Belle at Bellaboo Creations, to use magnets. So I have a pack of magnets here. So I think what I'm going to do is just add a magnet under here, one in here, and so have it close with a magnet. So that's what I'm going to do. So yeah, so I'm going to have the flower here with the soil, and then I'm debating what I'm going to do on the back here. That's where I either put maybe the Tim Holtz paper doll and a quote or something like that. I also considered making a cutout here and then putting some acetate behind it so you could see the the buttons through the packaging. But I don't know. I feel like that's going to be tricky to try to cut just this side without accidentally cutting the other side. So I'll see what I end up doing with that and see how that works out. But yeah, so that's my plan. So I'm going to pause for a minute, clear some stuff, and then I'll be back to show you how I'm going to turn the toilet paper roll into the little box or a little seed packet. I will be right back. All right, as promised, I am back and I've gathered my supplies to turn this toilet paper roll into a box. And I've just put down, this is an artist board, basically a big clipboard. And I'm just using that to kind of protect my surface here a little bit. I've got my toilet paper roll. I've got, I don't even know what this tool is called. I don't know if you'd call it a stylus, but it's basically, yeah, a tool that can be used, you can use it to make dots and things, but I'm going to use it to score lines. I tried to do this with my scoreboard, but it's the 2 layers of, you'll see, multiple layers of the cardboard is a little too much for the scoreboard. I've got a tiny ruler, a bone folder, and a pencil, and that's all I need. So, alrighty. Um, so basically, the first step to turning this into a box is we're just going to flatten the box out. Very simply, let me move this out of the way a little bit. So yeah, so I'm gonna flatten both sides, use your bone folder to get it nice and flat, and then you'll sometimes run into this situation here where a piece will become a little undone. So I'm just gonna use actually a little art glitter glue just to put that back in place. There's a good chance that'll get cut off anyway, but just for now, I'm going to go ahead and glue that down and try to get my pin back in my glue, apparently unsuccessfully. So hold on one second. Okay, I've successfully fought with my art glitter glue, and yeah, so we've got this nice and flat, or as flat as it's going to be for now. And then the first step is we want to measure 1 centimeter in on this side. And so I've just got my pencil here, and I'm going to mark a centimeter. And so I'm going to take my ruler here. And again, this doesn't need to be like precise. It is just a toilet paper roll after all. But and then I'm going to use this tool here, and I'm just going to give it a good score at that 1 centimeter line. And then I'm going to flip it over, and I'm going to do the exact same thing on the other side. So I hope everybody's having a good week. I hope if folks are participating in Seek, Gather, Create that you're enjoying it. This one definitely took me a little bit of thinking. I'd also hoped to get this video done a little bit earlier in the week, but I've actually just been dealing with some health challenges these past couple weeks, and so I kind of started making this video but wasn't really up to finishing it. So, but I'm feeling a bit better now, so I decided to come on and do that. So basically now we've got these 2 score lines, and this is going to make the sides of our box. And hopefully all of this is on camera. So yeah, so basically we're starting to look a bit box-like. So yeah, so now the next step is we want to take this side of the box, either side, and what we're going to do is we're going to mark at 3 centimeters, and then at 2 centimeters, and we're going to go ahead and score this again. So like I said, everyone was so kind about my last make, the altered jar lid. I gained a bunch of new sort of Instagram followers, and that was really sweet. I just really love this challenge, and I look forward to it. Which I'm sort of a late joiner to this challenge, all things considered. This past February was my first time participating, but I've really been looking forward to it. And so basically, and back to what I'm actually doing, excuse me, I'm going to go ahead and just do the exact same thing on the other side here. So yeah, and I was thinking, I was inspired by Hope over at Crafty Hope here on YouTube. If you don't follow her, definitely go follow her. She does some really cool art journaling, assemblage. I think I found her mostly through her assemblage work. But she's doing for the whole year, she's using altered tea tin lids. And I'd thought about just doing all altered jar lids to keep it consistent, but I don't know. This project just really spoke to me once I had all the prompts. So now we've got this uh, set like this, and then I'm going to need, let me grab, I forgot to grab scissors. So what we're going to do is we're going to cut here up to the 3 centimeter line. And then we're going to go ahead and fold this down. And then we are going to, let me get bigger scissors. And then we're going to cut the rest of this off. And so here with our score, we're going to crease our score line there. And then there's the lid of our box. So, and then we've got this piece, and this is actually going to be the bottom of our box. So what we're going to do is we're just going to cut these flaps off. And then we've already got this scored at a 1 centimeter line. So we can just fold that. But then we're going to do the same on this side. So we're going to go 1 centimeter in from the other edge. And score that as well. And fold this over. And then this is going to be the bottom of our box. So we're going to have a box here. And then what I like about this project is these are the only two sort of waste pieces that we could throw away. So, but otherwise we've utilized the whole box. So what I'm going to do real quick is I actually like having rounded edges on here. So I'm going to just go in with a corner rounder and round these edges. So that's looking good. And then I'm going to also do it on all 4 sides as best I can on the bottom of the box. Okay. So yeah, so then we'll have a nice little rounded edge here. And so, yeah, so that's basically how you make a box. Now, typically you go ahead and attach it this bottom of the box right now. I actually want to do a couple things to this one that are a little different than the ones I've done. So I'm going to hold off real quick on attaching the bottom. And I am going to go ahead and I'm going to paint the body of the box, so to speak, one of our lime green or light green colors. And then I think I'm actually going to paint the bottom of the box a dark brown, because this is where I'm going to add our soil for our texture. So I think you guys all know how to paint. So I will go do that off camera and then I'll be right back. Okay, well, I am back. And as you can see, I kind of got in the zone and just sort of kept working on this box. So here is actually the finished project. So I'll talk you through what I did and how it worked out. So again, I had the box that I made from the toilet paper roll, and I ended up painting it with the golden So Flat paint. And I think you probably could have, if you wanted more sort of a true color, or you probably could have gessoed it, but I just went ahead and painted right on. I actually like the texture since we're going for sort of a more rustic feel. Um, and that So Flat paint is actually kind of neon. And so I think the brown coming through, and I left the texture. I sort of wasn't, I only gave it one coat because I think the brown toilet paper roll sort of muted down the color a tiny bit. And I liked all the texture coming through. So I just did the one coat. And then I just went around all the edges with um, brown vintage photo archival ink once that was done. And then for the lid of the box, I went ahead and I stamped sowing seeds, as I mentioned. And I just ended up putting a couple magnets in here to keep it closed. I'd originally actually put this magnet inside, but it was too many layers for it to work. So if that bothers you and you're making a similar thing, oops, stay inside, seeds. You could cover this with washi or find some creative way to cover it, but honestly, it doesn't bother me that much. Um, and so, yeah, and so then I ended up stamping here. I did forget about the bottom, so that was kind of a fail, but you can still kind of see. So I did sow and grow instant stamping, and then these I just use an alphabet sort of click together stamp set, and they also come with a couple of little symbols, and so they had these little flowers. So I did a couple of little flowers, and I stamped these with this StazOn that I showed. I got this in like a mystery box, I think. So, but I figured it'd be good since I was stamping onto a surface that was already acrylic paint. And then again, I glued on the applique. I ended up using 2 stems to get it tall enough. I glued on my little button flower, and then I glued on the bottom of the box, which I painted this with a Liquitex burnt umber color. And then I just used art glitter glue and stuck the little like bee clay pieces down to give me, so that's my texture and my soil. And then on this side, I just kept it simple. And I remembered in my stash, I had this little corner stamp uh, that is vintage. I think I just picked it up at a vintage thrift store. And so I used that same StazOn and gave it little corners. And then I just used a Tim Holtz snippet quote about the winding garden path. And then, yeah, and then I filled the box with my quote unquote seeds. And so, yeah, so, it's obviously decorative, but also, now I've got a place, if I'm looking for these little black or gray buttons, I've got a place to keep them. And I love that snap. And so, yeah, so here's where I ended up. And just as a reminder, our week 2 items were cutouts. So the flower is made with circle cutouts, and then obviously this applique is a cutout. The seeds, I have the word seeds, and then the buttons are standing in for seeds. I've got texture here along the bottom, and then light green. The whole box is light green. So yeah, so I enjoyed making this. I don't know that I would say that this is necessarily my favorite thing I've ever made, but with the week I've had, I was happy to just get something done, and yeah, it was kind of a fun project, and glad I got to show quickly how to make the box for you all. So, all right, so hopefully I'll get this posted before the new prompts for week 3 come out, and I will see you next time. Thank you.